Okay, so I have to be real with you, I did not see either of these coming. We are heading into Martinsville, one of the most unforgiving short tracks on the entire NASCAR schedule, and right before race weekend, two driver changes drop simultaneously that have completely rewritten the storyline. And look, driver changes happen in NASCAR, that's not news. But this is different. Because one of these moves involves a name that every single NASCAR fan already knows, and the other involves a name that the vast majority of the fanbase has genuinely never heard before. Together, they are telling us something real about where the Xfinity Series is right now in 2026. One move feels calculated, like a team with a plan. The other feels like a genuine gamble, a bet placed at exactly the right track, at exactly the right moment, but still a bet. Both are happening simultaneously. Both involve serious questions about what comes next. So let's get into it, because there is a lot to unpack here, and it gets more interesting the deeper we go. Let's start with Ross Chastain, because before we get to the bombshell, you need to understand just how busy this man has been in 2026. Chastain is a full-time Cup Series driver, that's his primary job, that's where his season lives, but the new rules governing Cup driver participation in the Xfinity Series have opened a door, and Chastain has walked through it aggressively. He ran a Truck Series race at Darlington with JR Motorsports and came home with a second-place finish, a genuinely strong result that reminded everyone that this guy can run on any surface, at any level, and compete at the front. Then, just a short time later, he jumped into the number 9 JR Motorsports Chevrolet for the Xfinity race at Darlington, finishing 14th, solid, respectable, but not spectacular. What makes that schedule remarkable isn't just the results, it's the sheer variety of teams and series he's bouncing between, all within a matter of weeks. Multiple teams, multiple series, different equipment every time, and he keeps showing up and performing. So when Martinsville comes around, the logical assumption is simple: Chastain slides back into that number 9 JR Motorsports Chevy and picks up where he left off at Darlington. That's the easy, predictable storyline. But that is not what is happening. JR Motorsports has made a decision that stopped a lot of people in their tracks this week. Instead of putting Chastain back in the number 9 Chevrolet at Martinsville, the team is handing the keys to Lee Poleium. And before you scroll past that name or dismiss it, let's talk about who this man actually is, because he has a resume that deserves to be taken seriously, even if his NASCAR National Series track record raises some real questions. Poleium is 37 years old, from Samora, North Carolina, and he is a 4-time NASCAR Wellen All-American Series Division I national champion. That is not a minor accomplishment. The Wellen All-American Series is the backbone of grassroots NASCAR racing in this country, and winning it 4 times puts you in a category with only a handful of drivers who have ever competed at that level. On top of that, he has collected 3 wins on the car's late-model stock car tour, which further reinforces that this is a legitimate short-track racer with real credentials. On paper, for a track like Martinsville, a half-mile paperclip that rewards feel, precision, and short-track instincts above almost everything else, you can absolutely understand the logic. But here is where it gets complicated, and this is the part that is generating real conversation. Poleium's only career NASCAR National Series starts came back in 2014, 6 races in the K&N Pro Series East, and he has not competed at the National Series level since. We are talking about a gap of over a decade. The K&N Pro Series of 2014 and the Xfinity Series of 2026 are 2 completely different worlds in terms of horsepower, aero, tire management, pit road complexity, and competitive depth. The question that everyone is asking is straightforward: why now? Why Martinsville? The short-track logic holds up. If you are going to give a specialist like Poleium a shot at this level, Martinsville is the track where his skill set translates most directly. The physicality of that place, the bump-and-run culture, the premium on short-track feel, that's exactly where a 4-time Wellen champion should theoretically thrive. Whether this is a one-off audition or the beginning of something longer with JR Motorsports has not been confirmed. But either way, the decision carries risk. This could be exactly the kind of move that uncovers a hidden gem, or it could be a very steep learning curve unfolding in real time on national television. Now, here is the layer of this story that a lot of people are sleeping on: Chastain is not sitting out Martinsville. He is still racing, just with a completely different team. The number 91 Chevrolet for DGM Racing, running in partnership with JR Motorsports, is where you will find Chastain at Martinsville. Think about what that means for a second. Through just 4 Xfinity starts in 2026, Chastain will have driven for 3 different teams. That is an unusual pattern. even by the standards of a Cup veteran running a part-time Xfinity schedule. Looking further ahead, his schedule includes Watkins Glen in May with Jordan Anderson Racing, followed by Sonoma in June with that same team. Jordan Anderson Racing is also the team he ran with at Atlanta and COTA earlier this season. So there is some consistency building on that end, but the sheer variety of equipment and team environments he's navigating is remarkable. And this is where the rule change becomes essential context, because it changes everything about how we read Chastain's 2026 schedule. Full-time Cup drivers with 3 or more years of experience can now run up to 10 Xfinity races per season, compared to the previous cap of 5. That is a fundamental shift in how teams plan and allocate their Xfinity seats. It means a Cup veteran like Chastain can now be a meaningful presence in the Xfinity Series for nearly half the season, which changes the value proposition entirely, both for the driver and for the teams competing for his services. Do not be surprised if Chastain ends up back in that number 9 at some point later in 2026. The way this schedule is shaping up, this looks far more like a rotation than a permanent replacement. The second story hitting this week involves Hattinger Racing, and it runs parallel to the Poleium situation in ways that are genuinely worth examining. JJ Yeley, a driver with one of the longest active careers in NASCAR, was running the number 5 Ford for Hattinger at Martinsville. But Yeley is out, and 19-year-old Luke Baldwin is in for his Xfinity Series debut. To understand why this matters, you need to know what Yeley has been through in 2026 alone. He attempted to make this his 22nd Cup Series season, tried to qualify for the Daytona 500 with NY Racing Team, did not make it, came back the very next week at Atlanta and made that race, then ran the Xfinity race at COTA with Young's Motorsports where Brad Perez had to sub mid-race, and finished 28th. He then ran Darlington with Hattinger Racing and came home 25th. The man keeps showing up, that much is undeniable. But the number 5 Ford at Hattinger has been one of the more unsettled rides in the Xfinity Series this year. Luke Fenhouse, Tyler Gonzalez, Chandler Smith, and now Yeley have all cycled through that car. There is no clear driver identity attached to that seat, and no publicly stated long-term plan that connects any of these entries into a coherent vision. That context matters when you look at what is happening with Baldwin. He is 19 years old, and Martinsville will be his Xfinity Series debut. His NASCAR experience to this point consists of 5 career Truck Series starts, all in 2025 with Thor Sport Racing, with a best finish of 12th at Pocono. He did race at Martinsville in the Truck Series, finishing 22nd, so he is not walking into that place completely blind, which is meaningful. Martinsville has a way of punishing drivers who do not respect its rhythm, and the fact that Baldwin has some laps there already is a legitimate point in his favor. The parallel question is obvious, same as Poleium, same logic, right driver, right track philosophy, but is he ready for the jump to this level? 5 truck starts is a very thin foundation for an Xfinity debut at one of the hardest tracks on the schedule. Hattinger Racing has not confirmed anything beyond this single weekend, which means the uncertainty runs in both directions, no guarantee of a path forward for Baldwin, and no confirmed future for Yeley either. Zoom out for a moment, because both of these stories are pointing at something larger happening inside the Xfinity Series right now. The series in 2026 is operating in a genuinely fascinating and somewhat chaotic space. On one side, you have Cup veterans like Chastain using the expanded rules to cherry-pick races across multiple teams, bringing star power and experience to a series that benefits from the attention. On the other side, you have teams with limited budgets and shifting sponsorship situations cycling through drivers week to week, experimenting, and sometimes handing seats to drivers who are, by any honest measure, taking a significant step up in competition level. And right in the middle of both of those realities, Martinsville sits as the most unforgiving possible backdrop. It is a track where every single mistake costs you positions. Tempers run high, contact is not just possible but essentially guaranteed, and inexperienced drivers get exposed quickly by the physicality of the racing. At the same time, it is also a track where a genuine short-track racer can occasionally do something that shocks the entire field, because the skills that matter there are not the same skills that matter at a 2-mile superspeedway. The bigger question underneath all of this is worth sitting with: is this constant churn good for the Xfinity Series? Are teams being genuinely strategic, identifying the right driver for the right track, building toward something, or are they reacting week to week without a clear plan, filling seats as opportunities appear and disappear? Both things are probably true simultaneously, depending on which team you are watching. And that ambiguity is part of what makes the 2026 Xfinity season so compelling and so difficult to pin down all at once. Here is what to watch for this weekend at Martinsville. The first 20 laps of Poleium's run in the number 9 will be revealing. That window will show you whether he can match the pace and manage the track surface at this level, or whether the experience gap is going to show up immediately. Watch Baldwin's pit strategy throughout the race, because Hattinger Racing has been inconsistent in that department, and a young driver making his Xfinity debut needs clean execution from his entire team around him to have a realistic shot at a respectable result. Watch Chastain in the number 91. Does he treat this like a low-stakes appearance, or does he compete like he's trying to win? And at the broader team level, watch how the JR Motorsports operation performs overall. Does having Poleium in the number 9 affect the other entries? Does it limit resources, change strategy, or create any ripple effects through the team's race day decision-making? These results are not just about finishing positions. They are about the next decision each of these teams makes, the next seat, the next hire, the next gamble. NASCAR Nation Report covers all of it, not just what happens on the lead lap, but everything underneath the surface that shapes this sport week to week. If that is the kind of coverage you want, hit the like button, subscribe right now, and come back every week. We are chasing 10,000 subscribers, and if this video gave you something to think about, that subscribe button costs you nothing and helps us keep doing this. Drop your take in the comments. Do you think giving short track specialists and young rookies these Xfinity shots is smart team building, or is it just chaos? NASCAR Nation Report, real fans, real talk. See you at Martinsville.